Florida, and I want to welcome you today to this live broadcast where I speak a little bit more about who I am. This is a part of a Get to Know Your Candidate series. In the last live, I talked about basically why I was forced into running for Congress, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about. You will discover what are my personal beliefs, what is it I stand for as a person, as an individual. And in the next video, we're going to look at my specific standpoints, like my specific campaign objectives, like what are we going to do together when I get elected into office coming these midterm elections. So another thing you'll discover today beyond my personal beliefs is a little bit of a secret that a lot of people don't know about belief in itself. Stay towards the end, okay? At the end, I'll reveal this secret. It's going to be amazing. You'll understand. Things will like click for you like they did for me when I discovered this. So my name again is Kevin Porter. Kevin Porter 4, number 4, Congress.com. I was a person who was born and raised in the Northwest of the United States of America, specifically in Washington State is where I was born and raised. Later on, I've traveled the world, and I talked about this in my last video. I traveled the world. I got to know a lot of countries. My wife is from Denmark. She's Danish. We have 4 children together, married for 15 years. Have our children are in age, ranging the ages of 7 to 15, 2 boys, 2 girls. Yeah, life is wonderful. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here with you as well. Though things weren't always as wonderful as they may sound, I've had a lot of success in my life, thank God. And I've also had a lot of defeat in my life. And my life started out essentially as, a typical, how would you call it? A typical lifestyle, that you would have as a child. A happy child. I was the youngest of 3. And yeah, I was just a happy, curious boy who just was always getting in a bit of mischief, and always curious to figure out how things function and how things are. But from a early age, I had a very strong sensibility towards people, towards things going on. And one of the things that is one of the things that would be one of my greatest, defeats, but also one of my greatest successes later on. Well, when I was about 12 years old, things didn't work out between my parents, and so they decided to separate from each other. That for me was a huge blow, as I really looked up to my parents, both of them, and I was really close to them. And apparently, all of a sudden having to live in 2 separate households, or however that was going to work, was just a huge blow to me as a 12-year-old. Where at 12 years old, I was starting to figure out what life is like and figure out who am I and what's going on. Well, long story short, I wasn't able to see my dad for a while, which really saddened me, and due to some specific reasons. But nonetheless, I wasn't able to see him. I missed him so much, so much, and this caused me to go into a downward spiral from a young age. I was about 12, 13 when it started, because a father brings security into the household, and unfortunately, since the household was split, I missed and lacked that security and that sense of stability. Nonetheless, for a while at least, and nonetheless, this caused me to go into a downward spiral to question, everything. I'm a very existentialistic thinker. Like, what is the meaning of things? What is the meaning of life? And in my family, there's a history of depression and suicide as well, unfortunately. My grandfather took his own life, unfortunately, before I was born, so I never got to meet him. But so there's a history of mental sickness, per se, in that sense, which actually, was passed on to me. So when I was about, I was really young, I'd already think about, suicide. I'd think about these things. It just come by itself in a way. It was really, really crazy. But then with all these events in the household and so on, this caused me to go into just a huge depression in my teenage years. Where at school, I just felt awkward. I just felt, like nobody cared about me or loved me. And this is all my perception, by the way. None of this is true, because I was loved by my parents. I was loved by my siblings. I was loved by my friends. I just didn't see it, right? I would only filter out the negative and the bad about me. It was myself, my perception of myself, that I was horrible. I was criticizing myself, hard on myself. Well, this led to a traumatic series of events where, when I was essentially 17 years old, I decided that after many, many years of toying with the idea of suicide, that I was going to actually take my own life. And I thought about it many times, like I said, that, I was going to commit suicide. I was going to take my own life. I'm just going to get over this, get this over with. Nobody loves me. I was just in a world of self hate. It was really sad. So when I was 17, one day I decided that, you know what, it's over. I'm going to take my own life. I'd rather, you know, um, go to the abyss, the unknown, whatever may be out there. I knew that God existed. I just didn't know who he was. I knew he was out there somewhere. I was just like, okay, well, God, whoever you are, wherever you are, I'm going to go over to your territory now because I can't handle this anymore. So I went down into the medicine cabinet in the kitchen and I grabbed myself a bottle of medicine, right? It was a liquidy medicine. And you hear more about that in a minute. I walked upstairs into what was my mother's bathroom, locked the doors, sat on the floor, and essentially sat there with the medicine looking at it. And then I had this picture of me and like a friend I just met. And I felt like that was the only person who actually kind of liked me and liked being around me a bit, but I barely knew the person. So it's just another way of me to, um, excuse me, it's just another way of me to like self hate even more. Like, oh, this person likes me, but they don't really know me. And I remember just looking at that picture, just thinking these thoughts, and tears are just flowing on my eyes. The tears start falling onto the picture. It was in physical format, and it started staining the picture itself. There's teardrops on it. I think I still have this picture actually in the basement as a reminder of where I've come from. Not to drag myself back down there, but just a reminder of where I was. And essentially I'm sitting there, and then I decide to do it. So I grab the bottle of medicine, I open it up, and it's a liquid medicine. I just start chugging it, and I chug the whole bottle. It was completely full. And I just sat there and just waited for the lights to dim, basically everything to get dark in my head, and me to cross over into, I guess you could call it eternity in a way. um, and I just sat there and I waited, and I just cried and I cried, and I wrote a suicide letter too. I remember having that suicide letter in my hand there, with just saying goodbye to everybody, and farewell to everyone, that I love them, that it's not their fault, that I couldn't handle this anymore. And I'm sitting there, just waiting for everything to go dark, and it doesn't, right? It doesn't go dark, and thank God, right? Because I'm still here today. And so things don't go dark, and then all of a sudden I start getting scared. I start feeling this sensation of fear come over me, where I'm just afraid. I'm like, what's gonna happen? Is this gonna be painful? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So something inside of me tells me to get up, run over, and make a call to a friend. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna go call this friend, and I'm gonna say goodbye because I'm gonna die anyways. It's gonna be painful. I'm scared. I didn't say goodbye to this friend. I'm gonna do it. So I call the friend and I say, well, I just wanted to say goodbye. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, I'm killing myself right now, and I'm about to die. I've taken medicine, a whole lot of it, and I'm just waiting for me to cross over. And I just want to thank you for being my friend, and goodbye. And they freaked out, man. It was a young lady. She freaked out, and apparently ran down the street, and they called the cops and figured out where I was lived, and or they knew where I lived, and told the cops and the ambulances whatever where I lived. And I said goodbye, and I hung up the phone, went back to the bathroom, locked the doors again, and then I waited. And all of a sudden, I get this knock on the door. Boom, 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 boom. I think my brother was downstairs at the time, or my sister, one of the two. And they open the door, and then all of a sudden, there's police officers, there's ambulance, there's like, all these people. They got these big, huge like gear kits in their hands and stuff. And it was a 2-story townhouse we lived in, and essentially, I remember them walking up the stairs, hearing them walking up the stairs, and I open up the door and I look and I see all these, you know, uniformed first responders and so on coming to me. Thank God for them. Thank God for you if you're watching this. Thank you for your service. Seriously, thank you. And they walk in and they're like, Kevin, we heard that you decided to commit suicide, and we've got all this kit. What are you feeling right now? What's going on? We need to get you in the ambulance. We need to get you in the hospital. It's like, what did you take? What did you take? And thank God, because of my ignorance, when I'd gone to the medicine shelf there, or the medicine cabinet, in our kitchen, I'd grabbed myself a bottle of medicine, right? I didn't grab the huge bottle of Tylenol, the huge bottle of aspirin, the huge bottle of prescription, whatever there was. There's a bunch of stuff up there that was really lethal that could have killed me. I grabbed the bottle of I can't remember the name of it, but it's like this milky white stuff that you take for if you have diarrhea. So essentially, I took a full bottle of anti-diarrhea medicine, like constipation medicine, which does absolutely nothing. It just, made me constipated for a while. And they're like, "You're sure that's all you took? That's all it is?" I'm like showing the bottle, like, "Oh well, thank God you just took constipation medicine." Yeah. So that was fortunate. Um, so anyways, they take me in, they bring me down, they throw me in the ambulance and bring me up to the hospital. And I remember laying on the hospital bed, and the nurses and the doctors are coming, and they're just like, "Do we need to pump your stomach? I need to know what's going on. If you need," they're like, "Okay, we're gonna have you take active charcoal anyways, just to make sure if there's any poison in there and so on." Um, and the thing that really hurt though was my mom when she arrived. You know, she'd hurried home from work, heard about it, and I'll never forget the reaction on her face. Of her walking in there and just saying, like, "What's going on? What happened?" And she was, sorry, getting a little emotional here speaking about it, but she was like, what's going on? Why did you do this? Why is it so bad? My mom, she struggled. She was raising us alone for many years without any help. We had to downsize from this huge house to this um, tiny townhouse, in the downtown of probably one of the worst areas of the city, because that's all we could afford. And she was a stay-at-home mom, just dedicated herself to raising us, and all of a sudden had to get a job and provide for us. And it's just, the consequences of divorce, I guess. But she was trying her best and working hard, and then to have to deal with your child, um, you know trying to commit suicide, right? And I don't wish this on anyone. If you're out there and you've had a child, or you yourself have dealt with this, continue watching this, please, because there's light at the end of the tunnel. Okay. I have my children as well, and like my 15-year-old. I'm always looking for signs in them. Is there any of this stuff going on? And thank God none of it's there. And I'm able to hit the nail on the head if it is. I guess you could say, like, go against it. Anyway, so long story short, after that all happens, and I basically get discharged, they tell my mom she has to lock all the medicine down and get it all to reach. And I had no interest in taking my life anymore at that point, after seeing my mom and my siblings and what they felt and how they reacted towards it. All I wanted was to find a way out of the pain. I just wanted to find a way to move forward and because I didn't want the pain. So, the act of trying to commit suicide a lot of times is a cry for help. It's not something that's like just what do you call it? I wouldn't say stupid, but it isn't like it's a thing you do to just like stupidly, I'm just gonna kill myself. No, it's thought out. It's something that's like, and it's escape, because you want out of that pain, you want away from that pain, and you feel that the only way out of it is death, because you don't know any other way. And so essentially, I just thought, I was like, okay, you know what, I need to find a way out of this. And I did, thank God, because it's funny how God hears prayers, right? Because I remember when I'm sitting there waiting for the lights to go dark, or to dim down in my head, I remember just crying out to God, saying, "If you're there, here I come. I don't really know you." I was raised in a church. I learned a lot about God and learned a lot about this Christ Jesus, and stuff like that. But I never knew him or who he was. It's a lot of brain knowledge that I had from when I was really young. I'd hear about him, but I'd never experienced him. I'd never like actually felt him in any way. Does that make sense? I just heard and learned about him. And what changed everything is funny, because after that I started dating this woman who was like, and this is this old saying that God works in mysterious ways, and he really does, because I was very, interested in girls at the time. I was 17, and what was basically the most beautiful girl in school, all of a sudden took a big interest in me. And she was at my old school, and I was at a different school at the time, I guess I should say that. And I met her like at the parking lot of somewhere. She was like, I was just felt like driving down here, and I was sitting at this little lake next to the store here and reflecting about stuff. And then she came and just met me, and then we met, and then we started dating a bit, not much, but and then all of a sudden she calls me. She says, "Hey, you need to come with me." I'm like, "Why?" And she says, "There's this thing going on. This guy speaking, telling about his life, and you need to hear him." I was like, "Okay, fine. I'm open, cool." And at this time, by the way, I'm in treatment for also some substance abuse and stuff. I was very lost, but I go up to this guy, and there's this huge audience, and it's at this big conference center type church thing. There's tons of people, and I'm like, what is this, right? So I'm sitting down in the audience, way up in the back. So there's like two levels, right? There's auditorium with the ground floor, and then whatever, it's upper area, I guess you could call it. I call it the nosebleed section. Sitting in the nosebleed section, and I remember this guy. He's like 80 or something, 78 years old. He's just telling his story, and he's just telling how, when he was young, he was born with a heart that was fallible, and he was supposed to die, and then all of a sudden got healed by God, and like he had a whole heart, and like he's talking about all these miracles that happened in his life and the stuff going on. And as he's talking about how he was brought from like death to life, and he's been able to just serve so many people and love so many people, as he's talking about that, I could start feeling something in my heart move. I could feel this feeling of like this perfect love, and like this feeling of peace and just love inside of me. And I don't know if you're watching this right now, maybe you might be feeling that as well. But as soon as I started feeling it, I realized that I was feeling the love of God himself. What I'd heard about in the past, this whole God, Christ, Jesus thing, I was feeling the actual love of him in my heart, And then so he started talking about it, and he just called up and he said, hey, if you're suffering from depression, I want you to come up here right now, because you're going to be healed from that depression. I'm like, I don't know how this all works, what you talking about, but I feel what's going on inside me. I feel this perfect love in my heart. And I jumped up out of my chair. It was like there's a bolt of electricity just shot up through me, and I stood up right away. I don't even remember standing. I just shot up out of my chair, and I ran down off the top floor there in the auditorium, down the stairs, through the entrance to the main auditorium, all the way up to the stage. It was far, and I was one of the last ones to get up there because I was so far away, because I was like kind of hanging out in the back, And I stood there in a line, and he just started, one of his helpers or whatever, whoever it was, they just started praying for us and telling us to be healed. And he just said, be healed in Jesus' name. And I was like, okay. And then I was touched by the hand of God. I felt the power and the love of God just go through me like a bolt of lightning. Everything turned white, where everything was turning black before, everything turned light and white. And when it turned light and bright, I felt this power and this perfect love flow through me. And it was this feeling of joy and happiness I'd never felt before. We could sit and theorize about religion, about Christianity, about this, that, and the other thing. At that point, I didn't care. I just wanted a way out, and I just wanted to be touched by the love of God, and I was being touched by the love of God. And the best thing yet is that after that session, after that meeting, I didn't learn all this doctrine and theology and whatever, I just got touched by God. And it was really cool because I was so happy and I was so full of joy. And from then on, like the next 2 weeks, I just felt this just powerful feeling inside of me of just love. And naturally, I started pushing away all these things that weren't good in my life, the influences, the substances, the people, the whatever else it may be. I just pushed all of that to the side to start just cleaning up my life. It just naturally, I just started cleaning up, and at the same time, just feeling that perfect love inside of me, and just realizing that that's God, that God, when he created us back in the day as man and woman to walk with him together as friends, we turned his back on him. And we naturally, as a consequence had of that, by eating the forbidden fruit, I guess you could say, we had to leave that perfect heaven that we lived in at the beginning of creation, right? And that allowed us to come into this world here with the fallen humanity, right? We started a fallen humanity with Satan, as he's called. Satan is really interesting. Satan is probably one of the best theologians there is, if not the best. He knows the most about God out of any of us, but he has no relationship with him. He's not loved by him. He rebelled against him. So head knowledge isn't enough to know God. It's heart knowledge. It's all about this right here. You see what I'm saying? And the thing is that when God sent the Christ, who's known as Jesus, to come to this earth, right, is him in human form to go through what we went through, right? To go completely through it, the life experience as we go through it. And he lived in perfection. He healed people just like I was healed. He brought people, and the people he hung out with weren't like these intellectual superior people who were involved in the religious sects of the different sects of the time, like the Pharisees and this and that and the other thing. He hung out with the people who were rejected, people like me who was rejected. I was rejected, definitely. Now God has accepted me, and I have the power inside of me to do whatever He asks. This is why I wear this cross here, because God accepts me as I am. That is my power behind me. And the result of me turning my face towards Jesus and letting Him love me is that I have had a wonderful life. I had a lot of struggles. I've had to work through a lot of thought patterns, a lot of things I've had to work through, but God has brought me through that. He's given me His love and His Spirit inside of me to be my power and my light, to push me, help me push through this broken and painful world. And I know, like He says, that if I take care of the birds of the field and clothe the trees and the flowers, I think it's something like that. Don't quote me on exactly, but Jesus said something to that tune. He said, "Of course I'll take care of you." And that's the message I have for you as well, is that if you are in a place where you need that perfect love, you need that care, you need to be taken care of, well, Jesus says, "Follow me, I'll take care of you." And He does. He says, "I will take care of you. I will make sure that you're well." We have talking a lot in my lives and the videos and in the media and everything about, the insane amount of inflation, the political instability, and the things going on in this world. Well, Jesus promises that when we follow Him, He will take care of us. It's very simple. It's super simple. All you have to do is confess and ask, and He will come and He'll be with you. So if you're watching this right now and you want that, I'm going to give you the chance to get that, okay? And it starts with you. So my eyes open right now. I'm gonna speak this over you. So if this is something that you want in your life, you want this perfect love that I talked about, that cleaned out all this darkness, all this fear, all this depression, suicidal thoughts, brokenness, pain, and just washed it all away to allow me to live a wonderful life, to be married 15, almost 16 years, 4 beautiful children, successful career and life. And now God's leading me into politics. This is for you. All you have to do is say with me, "God, I want you and I need you. Jesus, come and touch me, touch my heart, fill my heart with your Spirit. I will follow you for the rest of my days. Forgive me for walking in my own way, on my own path, and forgive anything I've done that isn't good, and help me follow you." That's it. That's it. So simple it is it that believing that Jesus is the God who came down to free you from this trap which is this world, and bring you on a path of love, of truth, of pleasure, of fulfillment. And God says that He knows the plans He has for you to give you hope, to give you, to prosper you, not to harm you. He's not going to hurt you, but you have to basically give your life to Him. Okay, so do that with me. Okay. And like I said, this is a get to know me right now. Now I'm talking about my faith. In other videos, we're going to talk more about politics, what it is I stand for, what it is I'm going to do when I get elected into the 11th congressional district in Florida, how I'm going to help clean up, what I'm going to do, because this truth that's inside of me is powerful. Do you understand? It brings absolutes into our country which was founded on Christian values, okay? Our country is driven by Christian absolutes, and we're leaving them. They're getting left behind now due to this modern, what's the word I can call it? This modern way of thinking, of dominating, of confusion. Okay, and we need to go back to our Bible-believing Christian basics. And I don't say this as a religious, like, make everything shut and religious. No, it's not about religion. It's about relationship. Do you understand that? I'm not preaching to church here or anything. If you go to church, bless you. Awesome. This is what I'm preaching, that you have to follow a certain way and go to a certain church. I'm just preaching the love of God, the love of the Christ, Jesus. And I'm just talking about that, what He's done in my life. And this is what we were found on. That same transformational love is what our country is founded on. And that same transformational love will bring our country back to where it belongs and where it needs to be. So let's do this together, all right? And, let's walk forward. And one of the greatest things of all is that when you're a follower of Christ, you respect everyone else who doesn't think like you do or believe like you do, and treat them with the utmost love. Jesus Himself, He treated people around Him with amazingly. If they didn't believe, He treated them wonderfully. He loved every single one. Why? Because they're all His children. They're all our brothers and sisters. And it's the same thing for us who are believers in the Christ, is that we don't have to treat people bad because they don't believe. You see what I mean? We respect them. If you want to live the way you want to live, I respect your free will, just like God respects our free will if we choose to love him or not. He won't force us. He won't control us. And I won't force or control you. And that's where the politics, Christianity politics comes into play. The Christianity gives the absolutes, yes, no, up, down, left, right. It gives the framework of the absolutes. Man and woman, protect life, freedom, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. These things are protected. These are God-given freedoms by our Creator. And that's what Christianity does in our government and why we need it back in our government, right? Because the application in the Constitution is just a practical framework, right? But the motor behind it is the love that comes from Christianity and the absolutes from there. Thank you so much for watching this. Don't forget to check out my website, kevin4congress.com. Follow me, like me, share this, please. I know there's somebody that needs to hear this today. And comment below and tell me what you thought, what you experienced. If something happened inside you, proclaim it. And if something has happened inside you as well, I need to say one last thing. If something happened inside of you today while we were talking together, get started. Tell somebody who believes in this. If you don't, get a Bible app on your phone. Go to the book of John. Start with that. Then read the book of Acts. I'll give you the life of Jesus, what he did, what he stood for, and amazing things that he had to tell. And then Acts will give you what things are like when the Spirit came, Holy Spirit came, and how we are to live these days. Does that make sense? Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I care about you. I love you. Let's do